Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mary Lauder, and you are listening to the Since You Put It That Way podcast. It's the show that examines various health, wellness, and medical topics from unique perspectives. We will be having discussions and guests that will cause you to pause and consider, well, since you put it that way. Hi, Dr. Mary Lauder here. Welcome to another episode of Since You Put It That Way. And we're continuing with our cosmic health and wellness with Carol Ritberger and myself. This is the second in a series on grounding. Earthlings, if you're an earthling, you must earthing, or you're in trouble. No, you're not in trouble, but actually you should get grounded by connecting to the earth. And so my guest today, Carol, as a co-host, holds a doctorate in theology and esoteric philosophy and hermetic sciences. And she's been a medical intuitive for about 4 decades. And she weaves these perspectives of psychoneuroimmunology, spirituality, and metaphysics, esoteric healing, using metaphors with the body. And she does that into her medical intuition work. Armed with this knowledge, any person, anybody can participate more effectively in their own healing, and they can also help other people heal. And myself, as an osteopathic physician, I specialize in integrative and holistic medicine, and I've practiced for about 30 years now. And my goal is to reach out and educate as many people as possible. That's why I left the clinic. I left the building. I always thought outside the box, and so I got outside of the brick and mortar, as it were. And the message I have is that your body can heal, and you can heal your body. And not only do you get to feel well, but you can actually be well. And so my goal is nothing less than positively disrupting healthcare system, positively disrupting our medical care system, one encounter at a time. And that includes this podcast. So welcome to our podcast. A good resource is this book here. If you can read that backwards, well done. This is called The Healing Code of Nature, Discovering the New Science of Eco-Psychosomatics by Clemens Arvay, A-R-V-A-Y, Clemens Arvay, The Healing Code of Nature. Also, we've got resources on the podcast about how to get a grounding mat or grounding sheets, things that you can use in your home. I think there's even things called earthing shoes. But remember back in the days, the earth shoe? I had those where the heel was down. Gave me a little bit of a sore heel. But these are different because the sole is not rubber. So removing that rubber interface allows you to connect with the earth. So enjoy the podcast. Thanks for connecting with us, and may you connect to the earth in an equally strong way. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Since You Put It That Way, and our subset of podcast called Cosmic Health and Wellness, with our guest host with me, Dr. Carol Ritberger, and I'm Dr. Mary Lauder. Our previous podcast, we talked about grounding. We told everyone they're grounded, they're in trouble. No, actually grounding, go out and get with the mother earth, and get with, connect with yourself. And we decided, and with our discussion and talked about how really grounding helps us connect with ourselves, with the earth, and it allows us to have great healing because of the current that comes from the earth itself and from the atmosphere. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen to that. It was, I think, very worthwhile. And I guess I'll speak for you, Carol, that and myself, that we decided we were going to incorporate grounding when we work with our people, our clients and our patients. And that's
absolutely
how we're seeing this can really be, and how obvious it was, but yet hidden kind of in plain sight. So welcome to you. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. Little pun intended. Feeling very grounded.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Well, I am not, I didn't get grounded in the bad way today. I didn't get in any trouble. So probably because I was grounded. So, so I too am kind of in that same boat.
It's a good day, Mary.
It is. We're doing all right that way. So that's wonderful. So, well, this episode, as we talk about grounding and health, or lack of grounding, is kind of going into the chronic disease model. but our relationship to Earth as a result of it. So it's kind of a more of a, it's going to go into some existential discussion, but also some practical discussions. And what I found as I was putting the my thoughts down for this podcast, I ended up with more questions than I had answers.
Yeah.
And at first I was a little unsettled by that, because I thought, well, we're supposed to be sharing what we know. And I thought, well, I think this topic is so significant. I'm not sure having answers is really the right way. I think being curious about this is super important. And being curious is a way through this, because there aren't, I don't think, a lot of absolutes in this just yet. And there's ways we're kind of just feeling our way through a little bit of the existential aspect of our soul and our medical conditions that we have, and things that we're really trying to figure out as part of the human condition. And I think that curiosity is one of the key ingredients to have, rather than saying you have all the answers, because I think that that's a good posture of appropriate humility when approaching topics like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an option, and I think it's an option if we look at the things that are really kind of in the forefront of the, health issues that we have, the diabetes, the heart issues, the neurological issues that we're experiencing. I go through, the chronic inflammation, whatever it may be. I think that it would be worthwhile for each of us to go in and ask all those questions. And, look at it and step away from what we're doing. And that's not saying what we're doing is wrong, but step away from it individually and just basically ask, what more can I do?
Yeah.
And then I think that the way that when we step out of that, then we go back, we recognize just by that, what can I do? Then we go in and we engage in a way that we facilitate our healing. We don't go to others and say, listen, heal me. It's like, we're a team. What can we do? I can do this. And this is one of the things with grounding, is it's an option. It's the little bit of research that's been done is very significant on what this can do for us to heal, and
Right.
how it can connect with us, help us connect at a deeper level.
Yes. And there's not going to be a large corporation that comes in to do research on grounding, because unfortunately, the medical industrial complex, you can't patent the electricity. You
No.
can put a patent on the design of some of these products that you might use in your home for grounding, but basically there isn't a profit margin there. So it's not going to be pursued. But I think it has implications, grounding has implications to positively affect our health and positively support our wellness and our well-being, that I think is that important. And so thinking about living in harmony with ourselves, I think of, chronic conditions. Kira, I know you're so keen on this, about how our emotions drive, our thoughts drive our illness and our wellness. And when we talk about wellness, it's not just feeling better, it's all the way into vitality. And yet there's this existential part of us, whether it's we don't want to let go, whether we're overcome by the fears of things that we've encountered. Certainly we've had a pandemic, which interestingly, according to the literature that I'm reading on existential crises for humans, does not even make the list of an existential crisis after everything we've been through recently with COVID-19. Because in order to have an existential crisis for humanity, we have to wipe out entire generations or multiple generations across a broad geographical location. And so, as bad as COVID has been, it doesn't fit a definition. So then my question is, do we have to adjust the definition? Because if it affected an individual, was there a crisis? Was there an existential crisis? I submit the answer to that's yes. Because I know when I had COVID, before COVID was a thing, in late February of 2020, early March, And I got it from a patient who had been in Italy, and the doctors didn't know what it was, and I was sick enough to have to be hospitalized, and I almost didn't make it. I wasn't on a ventilator, but I almost, it was touch and go for a few hours. And I remember then deciding that, hey, I want to live. And I remember
Mhm.
that. Is that existential? Absolutely it is. And I say that with, a significant emotion in my voice. So are the things we're facing in our culture as a result of the inability to access medical care because we can't afford it, the medical industrial complex, the politics around healthcare, the politics around the environment, climate crisis. Are these existential enough? Yes, because people are having responses to that. Their life is changing and driven by fear, uncertainty, and literally being ungrounded. And so I do think at a personal level, there's an existential crisis. Maybe not for all of humanity, but I think yet going from the individual or grassroots upward, I think there is existential crisis going on that we're seeing. I don't know.
Well, and I think that it is all humanity because we are energy.
Yeah.
And we're going to be constantly bombarded with the vibration of fear or the vibration of hatred or anger or prejudice or bias. I mean, these are very real in the consciousness of the world. And again, it's we can't go in and say, oh, well, it's this country or it's this and that. It's a prevailing consciousness, and that is affecting us. We are energy. We are getting bombarded with it excuse me, all the time because we're energetically. And if we are being in fear or in uncertainty, then we're going to have a tendency for our field to be open to that particular vibration, that thought form, if we want to say it that way, that consciousness, and it's going to be affecting us.
Mhm.
And we're going to experience it through our own history, through our own trauma, through our own lives, so we can relate to it. But I think when we start looking at that bigger picture is to recognize, how can I say this, is to recognize that the thought of the one, it's kind of like the old teachings, the thought of the one affects the all. And I think that what we do is part of our responsibility of this living in harmony isn't that we can't go out and change other people's thinking, but what we can do is we can be aware of ours.
Mhm.
And we can be aware of how that's affecting us and what can we do to change to be living in harmony with ourselves, in harmony with earth, in harmony with the universe, within harmony of this consciousness. What simple one thing can I do to be able to be that change? And the thing is that when we each do one, even may seem like insignificant, meaning we don't have to think about it, it's not a major magnitude change and everything, it goes out in the field of consciousness and goes out in this electromagnetic field. And there are others that are out there that are like the 100th monkey. They've made a change. They can relate to it. And it's just like this ripple effect that we talk about. It's what Sheldrake's work was all about. Rupert Sheldrake's work about this morphogenic field.
Right. Right.
And at the base of that field,
right.
If we want to look at it as we can relate to it, it's our connection with Earth. It's our connection with our home. So, and our responsibility is to be with that home.
Right. So
and to care for it.
Right. So if we look at, and I'm not trying to interrupt here, I'm just tagging on it, that kind of the opposite component or a competing intention would be, where we're living in a trauma posture or the result of a traumatic event, because that causes us to dissociate from ourselves It causes
Oh,
us to be separate. It causes us a dissonance, a separation, disharmony. The dissonance is like, what is that? There's 8 steps on the, scale, right, in music. And then the dissonance is when you're at the 7th step, almost to the 8th. So it's not quite, in tune, and it's off just enough to really sound horrible, and it catches you. And that dissonance it could be in a cognitive sense, either real or perceived.
mhm.
And the brain doesn't know the difference between what's
Yep,
real and what we perceive. And so our fear response goes to both something that's real that's going to take us, or something that we perceive is going to take us that might not ever happen.
absolutely.
So we could be living in this state of a cognitive dissonance and then be separate from ourselves, separate from the earth, and have a lot of anxiety in an existential way that we just stay disconnected.
We do. And, it's interesting because the word disconnected means that we are, I'm going to use another word that's close to it, detached. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to have anything to do with what's going on.
Yeah.
But down inside in our mind part of us, it's like, but I'm still going to control the outcome. So when we disconnect, it's like we're going to go in, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to disconnect from myself, and I'm going to disconnect from all of this outer world and all of the trauma and all of the uncertainty and everything. But inside our mind, it's like our ego is going, well, that's not going to work. So we're still trying to control. We can't maybe control out there, but we're trying to control and micromanage ourselves and our emotions so much that what we do is we actually have this, we're not capable of energetically detaching from ourselves or disconnecting by any means. That is not even humanly possible. But what we can do is we can shut the door to our heart. We can shut the door to the emotions. We can live in the mental. We can covet the thinking. We can give show up to the ego and say, here, I'm yours. You just make me survive. Tell me what to do.
Mhm.
And I think when we look and at the topic that we're looking at, I think that if we go into that disconnect or even into the disassociation, which is a deeper level of the disconnect, that's when our body doesn't know what to do. It's like, how do we do this? What do we do? How can I, am I going to be able to eat? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be, and it just creates this kind of what I call this freaking out in the mental part of us, and the ego takes over. And when the ego takes over, we're not grounded. We're not coherent with ourselves. We're not in connection with our heart. We are energetically, we are just not psychologically in the psyche connected.
Right, because you're correct. We cannot disconnect. It's like asking a fish, what's the water like around them?
Yeah.
Can't describe it, but they're not disconnected from it, but they could feel like they're a fish out of water.
Right.
Right. And so I think that that's something. So, if we look at chronic illness in light of this, I think of, the elements of the earth, and I think of the support of the earth for the things that we need. Of course, herbal medicine comes to mind.
Yeah.
And how so many of our medications, even in the oncology world that treats cancer, come from the elemental table, right?
Yep.
Or the table of elements that we've got that are the primary minerals and things from the earth, like cisplatinum, and sometimes we use gold. We use gold treatments and have used gold treatments for rheumatologic conditions and things like that, and cobalt and whatever. But we use things from the earth for our benefit. But somehow there was like an imbalance that occurred, because then, well, fossil fuels, if we take that, we've got the fossils that make the fuel that we have extracted for our use, but then we end up with, fossil fuel emissions that are overwhelming. We end up with, you know, toxins as a result that, you know, get into our body. And, you know, part of the chronic illnesses that we have to do with our inability to detoxify appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how to wrap my head around this. I do clinically because there's tests and I find levels and I know how to detoxify people and I know how the body works. But really, even saying that in this conversation feels pretty reductionistic, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And and I feel pretty much like, look what I can do, but I really can't do. And yet, you know, there's a lot of folks who have been very toxic when I've worked with them that have gotten their lives back because I've worked with them. But I what I do know for sure is one approach that I learned was I didn't fight the toxins. I asked the body how it could better work. And I asked how the body could heal. And I think somewhere in that question, as I learned how to help people, and what I listened for was to find what we talked about in our previous podcast, and even now, the harmony of how we humans can coexist, can be a part of, can learn from, be supported by the earth, and the inherent capacity that our body has to heal. Versus, you know, fighting disease and fighting toxins. And, you know, if anything's going to survive in this world, it's going to be mold and mycotoxins. Yet those are some of the things, if they're imbalanced, that are going to be the things that can make humans quite sick. You know, and I think of black mold toxicity and things like that. So we vilify things. You know, so why do things get vilified instead of just saying we get imbalanced and we're exposed? I mean, how do we unwrap all that stuff kind of existentially and philosophically? Because it's there at that level.
Well, I think that you found the answer. And when you said, so let's look at it philosophically. What if we were to philosophically look at chronic illness, and what does that look like? What is the body trying to tell us? And then go back and remember that the body is the most exquisite, sophisticated healing mechanism that has ever been created. It has something that can get out of balance, and it has 2 or 3 things that can put it back in balance. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we stop looking at it from that, I'm going to say that reductionist perspective, and we start looking at the holism of it and that philosophical completeness and holism of what the body is, then I think that we're going to start to find the answers on how we heal. And instead of saying, okay, well, and even as a medical intuitive in the way that the body speaks, and through the energy of it, is that the soul speaks in metaphor. And, you know, excuse me for the language, but, you know, it's like hemorrhoid is a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. Well, so then we just go basically back and say, okay, philosophically, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And if we look at that, it's like, well, I have a lot of things in my life that is a pain in my backside. I have a lot of things, and whether we want to look at it energetically, we want to look at it through the physiology of the body and the moving it, or we want to look at it from the standpoint of the emotions or maybe the thought structure that affects the skeleton, we can do any of that. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful part that I have found of the 40 some years I've been doing this work is that in detoxing, there isn't one size that fits all.
No.
It's where do you feel that you have the most power and the most commitment and the most desire and the most inspiration and the most resiliency, whatever words are courage, whatever words we have. What's that one part of the dynamics of a chronic illness that you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, can look at philosophically and work on? And the beauty of it is, I found in my work is that if you have an emotion such as guilt, And guilt shows up in the in the right breast. It shows up in the belly. It shows up in the uterus in the female. It shows up in the gallbladder and these different places. And it's like, well, my God, Carol, you just said I'm going to have to work with my gallbladder and I'm going to have to work with this and everything that's overwhelming. But if it was just something like taking and what emotion is behind guilt and what memory is behind guilt and just work on that one thing, everything heals, Mary.
So if we tie that to, which is, this is not reductionistic, but simplistic, okay, which is completely different. Simplistic is taking the complexity and distilling it down to what really matters. So if we were to do that, and we, in our last podcast talked about grounding and how beneficial that is. So a person could actually do a grounded meditation around guilt.
Absolutely. Or a prayer or a mantra or an affirmation.
Yeah.
All of those, there's an interesting thing that in the research I'm doing for my book is that whatever we create from our heart and our mind gives us the words, and we use our own voice and the vibration of our own voice, which is connected to all that exists, including Mother Earth, we heal. And that can be a prayer, it can be an affirmation, but the power that we have to be able to talk to ourselves and to our body in a loving, helpful, supportive way with our own voice that is the same vibration in the heartbeat of our heartbeat and our voice of Mother Earth, we heal.
Okay.
Now, is that instantaneous? Yes, energetically it is. Does it take the human body a little bit longer? Yes, it does. It's designed to work in cycles. Mother Earth works in cycles.
Season.
So we just have to recognize that we have a 24-hour cycle. We may have a 48-hour cycle. If we've been really toxic, we may have a 72-hour cycle, but we're going to heal. And I think that excuse me for kind of getting on the bandbox, but I think the actual shift of consciousness around dealing with illness, and when I say illness, I'm talking about more than disease, which is an actual physiological, pathological breakdown in the human body. I'm talking about illness. I'm talking about the body, the energy, the mind, and the emotions. And in illness, all four of those things are involved. And if we can philosophically step away and look at what's happening in the body and ask the question, body, what do you need? It's not going to say to us all the time, well, you need to stop eating Cheetos. What it's going to say to us is, so what do you love doing? Connect with your heart. Play creativity and imagination and grounding and Mother Earth and, walk on the beach, put the sand underneath your feet. That is the philosophical approach of healing that was used so effectively throughout the history of prior to what we have as Western medicine. Even Eastern medicine uses philosophy in its approach. So sorry for the rant, but I'm really passionate. Can you tell about that? I think we have some wonderful tools.
That's really great. Well, and I was, I think the standard model of medicine is actually quite boring because it's symptoms and pills and potions and symptoms and supplements, and it's really beyond it's beyond just the physical body. It's beyond just what we look like, what our body composition is. It's about all of us fully engaging in our life of what that is and what that's meant to look like. So if we go back to, I'm going to digress a little bit back to this detoxification and toxins. What do we think? Because we've got the kind of the younger generation coming in, and I've met a lot of them. that have existential angst about the environment, about climate. And there's so much politics around that, and that's not where I'm going. There is economics around that. That's not where I'm going. I'm going to the cost of human life, where we've got a buildup of toxins in people that is causing disease. And we've got imbalances there that people are dying from. There's enough toxic buildup, for example, like with benzene, that can trigger things for chronic myelogenous leukemia. And then we've got overruns of viruses, Epstein-Barr, linked to different types of lymphoma. And, probably 95 to 99% of the entire planet has had exposure to Epstein-Barr. Then we've had these other viruses come through, like the COVID-19 virus. And that seems to have reactivated a lot of these chronic viruses. And I would look at these viruses more as toxins. And maybe that's not even the right word, but that because they're imbalanced, because we're out of balance. And so how do we look at that from our connection to the planet, our connection with grounding, that we knew being connected to the earth was a good thing? How do we look at that and the concept of, from a functional medicine standpoint, I deal with those folks who have mold intoxication or exposure, with people who have heavy metal buildup, and how that changes bone composition, cardiovascular structures, pesticides, and organophosphates that affect the neurologic system, and things like that. How do we look at that kind of philosophically through these eyes?
Well, philosophically, a virus is a perfect organism.
Okay, say more.
Okay, so from the standpoint that it's a perfect organism, not from the standpoint that it can sustain itself, but it needs to have a host.
Yes, it does.
And so it's a non-living organism. So that means that it needs to have a disharmony in the human body in order for it to flourish and grow and multiply. A virus, in the perfection of what it is constantly regenerating itself. It's constantly adapting to the environment. It knows exactly when showtime is, because there's a perfect imbalance in the acidity and alkaline in the human body, or there's too much stress, or maybe there's whatever is going on chemically, and it becomes active. So if we looked at a virus philosophically and we said to ourselves, and I know this is going to be a stretch, I understand that, we look at ourselves as a virus, and that our sustainability is our adaptability. I think that's what these young people are. I think this generation is the generation of adaptability. I believe that they have come in and we know from the standpoint of the research, we know that they have more active codons in their DNA. They have a different makeup of the liver, as far as the filtration system that it's able to do. They have more active cells in the human body than we do. Their immune systems are able to fight environmental contaminants. We have all this research, but we also know that they can die of a common cold. They can die of a common virus. So I think that if we go in and we look at the changes that have happened in just the evolution of the human body and the adaptability, not necessarily the mind, but the human body and that perfected part, like the virus itself, then I think that our bodies are designed, the young, I say young people, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. That is different. That is actually my age. I think that the generation that's here now are here to be able to, to transmute the toxins and to be able to help the body rid the toxin the way it's designed. So you have to excuse me. It's like I had a whole bunch of conversation going on in my mind at one time.
So what age group is that? What age group are you thinking?
What my brain is thinking is that it would be of value for us no matter what age, to look at ourselves, if we said philosophically, as part of something greater.
Okay. And then, but the young people coming in, what age are those people that you're talking about? The young
Actually, probably in gestation, I'll do birth to 30, 35.
Okay.
They are, the research on them that's been done is they are anatomically different. They are evolved. They are like the adaptation of a virus. They know how to survive in a world that is toxic. And their bodies have been refined to be able to do that. And I think through that, then they're going to be able to eliminate a lot of the diseases that my generation has had and the generation after me has had, because their bodies are just different. They don't react that way. And I think what they're going to do is through that process, they're going to look at food differently. They're going to go back and look at supplements differently. I think they're going to go back, and if they go into functional medicine, I think they're going to look at the whole connection with earth differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what they're going to do, and they look at growing their food, and they look at the importance of the land and the importance of the organic part of it, and they look at the importance of water, and they look at the importance of the things that we've done in other generations that have allowed us to survive, but they haven't necessarily allowed the earth to be able to thrive the way she's designed. It's like Mother Earth is always playing catch up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're the generation in this age group that is literally going to heal a lot of the diseases we have. I think they're going to heal in their need for community and all the different things. I think it's not they're going to take us back to the simple times. They're just going to refine how we live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think medicine is going to have to work to keep up with them.
Well, it seems as if medicine's going in one direction right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's going in the direction of profit margins. It's going in the direction of consolidation of large systems and corporations and insurance companies, where the majority of doctors in this country now work for an insurance company or hospital system.
Correct.
The vast majority, not just a majority. And so, but yet we don't want a one-payer system, but yet we don't want to have healthcare for all, but yet we don't want to have people have access so they can not have, be strapped with tens of thousands of dollars of bills, which makes no sense at all. And we want to subsidize, now I'm soapboxing it over here. Now they want to, subsidize things like for the COVID vaccine, so corporations can get the vaccine out right away in a safe and efficient fashion. But then when the companies make their profits, they don't give any of that money back. That was taxpayer money. Right. Now, I just, there's such an imbalance there. And then we see that then in the other industrial complex areas where there's an imbalance towards profit margins. I'm all for people making money, but not when it, is harmful, not when it's greedy, not when it's harsh, not when people are suffering. And, we've got that in medicine where people are just overrun. They're imbalanced and they're ill. Mm-hmm. And there aren't answers to healing them in the traditional sense.
Right.
With mycotoxin illness, black mold, you can't simply give them a pill. There isn't a pill to make that go away.
No.
You have to work with the body's ability to heal, find health, and then allow the body to make its way to get rid of the imbalanced amount of mold and toxins from the mold that are present. That's what you do. With heavy metals, we need iron because iron carries around and mixes with our heme molecules and our red blood
Right.
cells to take oxygen. So we
Right.
need that. But if that gets displaced by lead, then that you know your ability to carry around oxygen is diminished. Lead gets in the bones and it disrupts the calcium, magnesium, vitamin D balance, and we get osteoporosis and brittle bones. So we don't want lead around. But yet it's a part of what got us to where we were in the Industrial Revolution. You know, that was in the fossil fuels, the lead, you know, in the gasoline and things like that, petrochemicals. So, I mean, it's almost like, are we saying that this generation that's coming in, the 0 to 35 years old, because they've adapted, and that's probably the epigenetics, right? The
Correct.
result of the environment's pressure on our genes. So when that occurs, that's almost like it's bringing the pendulum swinging back the other way.
Correct. Absolutely.
So how do we get out of the way of that if we're considered the, or how do we support it, better yet, if we're considered the older generation, which I'm on the end of the baby boomers. I'm one of those at the very end, but I'm still a boomer. and you're a little bit ahead of me.
I'm actually at the beginning of it though, so there you go.
Yeah. So we're the bookends of the boomers here. But how do we, you know, what do we do in our healing modalities and our approach to care for patients and our clients to really help them understand this?
Well, I think the first thing is that we listen and acknowledge that it's real.
Okay.
I think that we move beyond the fixing and listen, and then the person hears themselves and finds something that they can believe in and they can do. They can personally feel like they're participating in it versus turning themselves over to just being fixed. I think it's just listening, acknowledging, supporting their awareness, offering things that are natural. A lot of the medication, while it was originated from a true source of maybe a plant or a bark or someplace in the Amazon or whatever, has reached a place where it's basically been modified to the point where the true vibrational essence is hardly there, and the body knows that. So I think that we just
heal from that product then.
Absolutely. It won't, because we're vibration, and if we're only getting a very minute part and our body needs a lot of it, then that pill's not going to work. And you know me, I'm not anti-medicine, anti-doctor at all. I think the technology of medicine is absolutely phenomenal. I think the testing and the imaging and everything they have can give us a clear picture, can give us a diagnosis the best that medicine knows, and then our job is to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think if a doctor gives medication, no, we don't want to take it. But sometimes the human body just needs a little bit of breathing space, and we take it. And then what do we look at? We look at things like you and I've done, is we look at things based on the essence of who we are. And we say, what can I add to that? What can I do to replace that? How can I do something that's so pure to its origin or so pure to earth? And the body responds to that. I think that if we stop looking, so excuse me, this is a little dangerous because it's a generalization, but I think that if my generation, I'll speak for that, would stop looking at the younger generation as having their head up their backside or not knowing what they're doing, or not being conscientious, or not worrying, or not this and that, or they're careful, whatever that thought is, I think we just need to let go of those thoughts, because those thoughts are consciousness. We're feeding on them. We're so quick to judge anything different than who we are that we absolutely limit our ability to connect with ourselves, with earth, and with our healing.
Well, it's like we think that because it's not done our way, it's not safe.
Absolutely.
And one of the key things that we have to have in order to feel existentially okay is safety.
That's number one.
Yes. And the second thing is our basic human needs being met.
That's survival, safety and survival.
Right. And so we now look at that with ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences. But what we've done with those scores to some extent is we've said, well, we have an awareness of those scores, and we put you in that category that you have all those things that you have to overcome. Good luck overcoming them.
Mm-hmm.
What if we were to change our thoughts and say, well, that's part of the human condition. On this planet, everybody suffers. This is not the planet of the blue foamy drinks. That one's somewhere else. I've been there, but this is not it. There's
Right.
a lot more fun on that planet. But this planet, by and large, the majority, if not everybody, has been touched by suffering. It's a key component of the human condition. So the research on self-compassion done by Kristen Neff and
Yes.
folks, talk about the acknowledgement of the common humanity, the acknowledgement of the mind-body connection, and the acknowledgement that, we're collectively in this together, making a difference. That tends to take the wind out of the sails of, well, this is happening to me only. And that existential, it takes us out of the center of the universe. And it helps us to identify with other people.
It connects us to other people.
Yes.
It just energetically, instantaneously connects us with other people. It puts us back into the consciousness that is the prevailing consciousness, that everything is one.
Yes. And, I have found it difficult as a physician, as I've literally been putting, my clinic together, which is virtual. I mean, candidly, it was so much easier for me to do a brick and mortar. I could throw a shingle out anywhere. I don't mean shingles like shingles, you got them on your side. I mean, I put my shingle up with my name on it, and boom, I could grow a practice. Now that, I took the walls away, it's like it doesn't exist. And people are like, well, can you provide care? I'm like, well, you went to a building, or did you come to see me? Right? Did you come for me to connect with you as a doctor in the doctor-patient relationship, or did you come to a facility? And it's such an interesting conundrum. And then when I work with people and they get better, meaning they heal from something that's been critical, then I talk to them about well-being and going on into vitality. And they're like, oh no, I'm good enough. I'm just not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, really? How do we turn that corner into the concept of, we want to go towards well-being. We want to have vitality. We don't want to just get by.
Well, I think a lot of it is the fact that well-being encompasses everything, and good health encompasses the body. And I think our perception of healing is that if our body gets better, it's good. It isn't that we want our well-being to support all aspects of who we are, to support the body in that good health, or they're even connected. But well-being is all of us. It's the entirety of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with Mother Earth and this grounding, as we've been talking about it, she supplies everything, literally everything we as humans need for vitality and well-being. Everything.
Okay, say more.
Well, again, we're depressed. We go outside, we get in the sun, we get the experience of the nature, we get the air, even though it may be toxic or whatever. I'll go there with everybody, but we go and we do that. She's always providing for us air. She's also always providing the heat that we need, the night that we need, the food that we need, the water that we need, the emotional nurturing that we need, the psychological reprieve that we need. She's always giving to us. And everything is there for us to have well-being and to have good health. Where we fall from that is that we, and this is part of our responsibility, I believe, and our role to Mother Earth is that to find ways to grow our food without toxins, to find ways to use the insects that we absolutely can't stand because of mass production of food. So what do? We spray, or we annihilate, or we eradicate, or we change, or we do the GMO or whatever. And we basically take away the body's ability to adapt. So what came in with that is that when I was talking about food, is that I can go back with my husband, grew up in a little town in California, and they grew all their own vegetables. And they grew all their own vegetables, and people would look at them and say, oh, well, you're growing all your own vegetables because you're poor. But the reality of it is they grew their own vegetables because it was easier than having to go to the store and do all the different things. They ate dirt. They would clean things and they ate dirt. They never worried about whether there was pesticide in the dirt or whether there was any of the contaminants or anything. And it's interesting because of the times that I went to my husband's class reunions. They had, at their last reunion, 55 years after they graduated, they had more living student people than I had at my 50th.
Okay.
And we talked about that. We said, okay, so what was it? I asked them, I said, so what do you contribute to your longevity? And they said, we'd go out and pick our food and we'd cook it. And we would go out and put our feet in the ground and we'd walk around barefoot in the dirt. And we would go sit under a tree and have a group of friends come and talk. Or we would go to a lake and we would swim and enjoy all of the things. They didn't have the electromagnetics. They didn't have the cell phones. They didn't have everything. Everything that they had to exist was provided by Mother Earth.
Okay.
And they actually had, interesting because of who I am, they actually had less heart disease than kind of what the standard was. Their main thing that I found that was their problem, and I'm going to say it that way, is that they all identified that the main thing tied to their aging was the fact that they just didn't honor the needs of their body, and they overworked it and they abused it. So therefore they hurt.
Okay. Okay.
But when I went in deeper research, they didn't have osteoporosis the way that we have. And I mean, these are people in their 70s that didn't have any of these things. So again, I think what it is that I think that it's important that we go back and we look at our responsibility to Mother Earth as to be her caretaker. We're Earth stewards. And she provides everything that we need in order for well-being. And she can provide everything we need for good health if we change the way that we eat. If we change the things that we eat, the things that the processed foods that loads up the liver, it changes the toxins in the body, and the body's exquisitely designed to detox. But when we're feeding it and inundating it with all of the contaminants, it's got cycles, it's got design to it. It's not going to instantaneously change any of that. But I do believe that the generation of these younger magnificently designed beings have had enough alterations in the epigenetics of who they are to be able to do this without having to think about it. They have community gardens.
There's a dichotomy of that group, though.
There is.
You've got the folks that are literally completely disconnected. Well, okay, we decided energetically that can't be, but their awareness of their connection isn't there because they're on their devices. They're literally cannot write letters because all they do is they use their thumbs for texting and typing. That's it.
Yep.
And
they're not really connected.
No.
They're not really connected. I mean, yes, technically they are, but they're not connected. You can't look because I can see auras, is that when I'm looking at you, because we're on Zoom, when I'm looking at you, I can see your face and we can have fun and I can see that, beautiful sense of humor in your eyes and everything. But I couldn't tell you what your aura looks like because the technology distorts that.
Ah. Okay, well, I put my best aura forward for you. I'm surprised you can't see it.
Yeah, well, I can feel it in your heart and I can see in your words, but it's just from the standpoint I bring that up because when we think, we're connected through technology and through cell phones, yes, we are literally connected, but we're not energetically connected.
Yeah.
It's distorted. I believe that part of the differentiation that we are seeing in this generation that we're talking about is that we're seeing what consciousness has done, what in the boomers and their sense of entitlement, I think we've passed that on. It's generational work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the heart of who they are very connected. At the heart of who they are very connected with the bigger picture.
Yes. So before the boomers, who were before the boomers? I don't know what we would call them. Pre-boomers. I don't know what we call them because
I'm not sure we started labeling.
Yeah. But they looked at the boomers with suspicion, I would assume. And the folks that were growing up in the 60s were looked upon with great suspicion for, the counterculture maneuvers that they had. And now it's just handing, down another generation doing the exact same thing. So something they're not comfortable about, something that's different, somewhere we have to, it feels like to me that, and I'm closing my eyes to kind of get a better idea of this, is that the lack of safety comes in just because of the difference. It's just different.
It is different. And
so it's triggering in people that don't feel safe. And that comes from, I believe, I don't have any proof, but from a lack of their own sense of a security, of knowing their place in the world, knowing their connection. Because on the other hand, the paradox of that is we're all wired for connection, love, and belonging. So if a person has connection, love, and belonging, and they feel really good about it, and they live and they flourish, what does it matter what it looks like? Right?
Right.
And I think of that where I go immediately as a physician and towards gender, towards sexuality, towards what does that look like when people have some fluidity within their both their gender and sexuality. And having cared for and worked with patients on that level, it was absolutely life altering for me. Because I think that's one of the hardest things to grapple with. And it's one of the hardest things our culture, it judges people about all the time. and restricting care and restricting and thinking you can legislate things that really don't belong in any legislator session anywhere.
Correct.
And it comes from and out of a sense of fear, which, is from maybe not being able to control something. And our lack of awareness to our own ability to connect how we need to connect. How I connect with Mother Earth, how I connect with Earth, how I connect with nature, even though you and I both go outdoors, is different than how you connect.
Yes.
My relation,
But the importance is that we do.
right. My connection with myself and how I have my feel good moments is different than how my husband connects with himself.
Yep. And if
But
we philosophically accepted those differences instead of comparing and seeing them as opposite from us, the way that Mother Earth does. Mother Earth knows there's a duality,
yeah,
but she doesn't see everything as opposite.
right.
If we can move beyond that use that philosophical approach to move beyond it. And when I talk about something just came in, when many of the, teachings talk about the oneness of everything being connected. And maybe it starts as simple as just recognizing individually and evaluating, what does that look like to me? What does that look like to you?
Mhm.
Then if we go in and if we looked at it that way, it would be compassion, kindness, respect, acknowledgement. It not necessarily accepting, but if you take those words and you apply those words to Mother Earth, she's all of those qualities.
Mhm.
She's love, she's kindness, she's compassion, she's respectful.
Right. And even just look at the different environments there are, the continents being different. The oceans, the oceans are all connected. Why are there so many different names of the ocean? Because the characteristics are different. But
Absolutely.
it's all just water, right? I'm being a little cheeky there. It's all just water, whatever. No, there's different characteristics in each ocean. There's different geological features in oceans, different currents in each ocean, different animals and fish and all that in different ocean and even at different depths. But well, how can we accept the difference there, but yet we can't accept the difference within us? I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is that in oneness, there's always duality.
Mhm.
So if you just recognize there's duality, masculine, feminine, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, all the different oceans, there's just duality in all of those different areas, but they're not in opposition.
Right.
They're all one from the standpoint that there's a duality within the oneness, but there isn't the opposition within it.
Ego would want the opposition, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if we could take that same premise of how, with earth and with the grounding, and we could look at that, and we can look at that with people we love, people we know, people we don't know, people who are in a different completely part of the world, and stop seeing things as opposite, then we're not as inclined to be buried under that fear of safety or that concern about security.
Or having to control the outcome, which we typically can't anyway.
Absolutely, which we can't.
Right.
All we can do is control our thoughts and control our actions and words.
Yes. On a good day.
Yep. And there's times that, we probably get a gold star after our name. And there's other probably times that it's like, yeah, you need to go sit in a corner there and rethink this thing. But that's how we evolve. That's how we learn. But I think if we go back to our role with the planet, our being an earth steward, our job is to, kind of like in Lion King, take what you need and always replace what you take.
Yeah. So in medicine, then, there aren't really and doesn't need to be a conflict. between what would be considered integrative, alternative, Western, Eastern.
No,
It's all healing.
it's all healing.
And we're working together in harmony with the body. And if we work in harmony with the body, we can then work in harmony with the earth.
Absolutely. And Mother Earth will put us in harmony.
Yeah.
She will put us in harmony.
A wisdom greater than ourselves.
Whether we sustain it, therein lies the challenge in our humanness, is that Mother Earth will always cohesively in her heartbeat and our heartbeat put us together.
Unfortunately, I'm thinking about how Mother Earth corrects us when we get kind of cheeky and we challenge gravity.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Ma. I got that again.
Well, so now we're gonna go there. So all she's trying to do is just ask us to rise above, look beyond, and see things differently. Let's be philosophical. So let's shoot you off of the ground, no gravity. So anyway, and that's another part, with Earth, if you stop and think about it, is that there's a lot of humor in what she offers us.
Yes, stink bugs come to mind.
Yeah, just it's so if we stop and look at the grounding, that again, if touching it, so from that esoteric, from every perspective, is that it comes down to that's the answer.
Yes. And I had a beautiful white butterfly garden this summer at the expense of my kohlrabi. So
but you got to see something very, very unusual.
it was, and I have never seen those types of butterflies before. And it was gorgeous, and they just hung around the garden. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, I should take pictures and I go over and I'm like, there's no kohlrabi left. All the leaves were gone.
So the way the philosophical thing is, oh, I'm so glad that I supplied you all the food that you need so you could be safe and secure.
Exactly.
But the mind goes in and goes, you ate that. You really did that.
Oh, and yes, and there just was no saving that. I've never seen, and I've grown kohlrabi before. I've never seen them eaten like that my entire.
Yeah.
The whole there's just a stubby stem was left, and yeah.
It's interesting because on the island, our island, I'm sure that all of them do, we have wild pig.
Mhm.
And there's no predators.
Yeah.
Unless a man can be a predator, but meaning that there's no natural predators. So in my garden, I planted some Chinese cabbage. Napa cabbage is another name for it. And oh my gosh, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I went out one day because I was looking out my window. It's like, what happened to all that? And the pig went in and ate all of the green, but left the white of the stem to where it was a perfect star, this multiple star with all these different points on it. And I went out, my first thing is I can't believe you ate all of my Napa cabbage. And then I went and looked at it, and the way that the pig ate it, it didn't eat it down to destroy it, and now it's reliefing.
Yes, well, there you go.
And it's rejuvenating. And so I went in, I thought, well, if I'm gonna that pig, I'm gonna pull that. And it's like, no, you know what? If I feed you that, then you're gonna leave this alone for me. So again,
Yes.
but that's the way Mother Earth looks at everything, is that everything has a duality, but not everything is opposite. It's all part of the one.
We would do well then to relax a bit.
Yes.
We would do well to let go of control. We would do well to let ourselves know that there's something greater than us, always at work. And we would do well to know that it's better to cooperate than to oppose. And we would do well to know that the inherent wisdom that we have in ourselves, within our soul, our mind, our body, our spirit, can be in harmony with the inherent wisdom of the earth.
It always is. The soul and the earth are always in harmony. What would be also something to add to your list is for us to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this body is designed for healing.
Yes.
And if we allow it to do what it's designed and support it the way it's designed, it will heal.
Yes. Yes.
And our job is to, this is one of the things with heart math, with the coherent, that they talk about in the heart coherent vibration, everything is that, simply said, if we overthink, we're going to have irritation.
Yeah.
If we just allow and come from our heart, we're going to have a fluidity and a flow, and the body heals.
Yes. I think we can do all that and take our shoes off, stay a while.
Actually, my shoes are off and it's not on earth, and I'm probably going to go do that.
Yep.
But again, I think that this whole concept of our role with earth is that she will always provide for us what we need, but our job is to replace what we take.
Yes.
And replace it in a way that is in harmony with her, and
Yeah.
not in a way that's destructive to her.
Yes. Well, there you go. I think we just had church.
I think we just finished it up.
Well, thank you for going way out in the cosmos there on grounding and earthing and all the things that make us human and delightful, funny critter creatures we are.
We are absolutely just delightful. We are precious. We are delightful. We are comical. We are just so vast.
Yes. And so we now can enjoy all that. Well, and thanks to all of our listeners. We've gotten through the grounding. I hope that you have all taken advantage of your ability to ground. If not, we strongly urge you to do so, and let us know how that has changed for you and what's changed for you. So until next time, thanks for being with us on Cosmic Health and Wellness, one of the parts of Since You Put It That Way podcasting. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Lauder, and of course, my co-host here, Dr. Carol Ritberger. So have a great day, and thanks for listening and viewing. Thank you for joining us on the Since You Put It That Way podcast. Today's episode was written and produced by Crowded Table Productions. Technical editing, Malin Long Lopes. Sound editing, Jonathan Fiegel. Music, The River Jordan, written and performed by May Erlewine. Please rate and review our podcast as well. We appreciate your feedback, and hey, be positive, share the love.